The top 10 richest people of all time. Disclaimer: please note that the list has been adjusted for modern economic equivalents in 2026. Let's be honest. When we hear richest people ever, most of us think of tech billionaires flying rockets for fun or buying social media platforms at 3 a.m. We're talking about emperors who controlled chunks of the world economy, kings who received literal tons of gold every year, and rulers so wealthy they could accidentally crash entire markets just by being generous.
So forget millionaires, forget billionaires.
Some of the people on this list were walking, talking economic superpowers. Let's count down the top 10 richest people of all time, starting from number 10 all the way to the most financially overpowered human in recorded history. Number 10, Jakob Fugger, 1459 to 1525. Citizenship, Holy Roman Empire, Augsburg. Net worth, $221 to $531 billion. Source of wealth, banking, textiles, and mining, silver and gold. Notable achievement, funded the rise of Holy Roman emperors and the Spanish king, Charles V. Fun fact, he built the Fuggerai, the world's oldest social housing complex still in use today for approximately $1 per annum in rent. Jakob Fugger wasn't a king, but kings needed him. This 15th to 16th century banker basically invented the phrase, "money talks." He funded emperors, influenced elections in the Holy Roman Empire, and helped bankroll Charles V's rise to power. Imagine being so rich that royalty owes you favors. But Fugger wasn't just about stacking coins. He built the Fuggerai, a housing community for the poor that still exists today. Rent? About $1 per year, plus prayers. That's not a typo. He proved you could be insanely rich and still leave behind something meaningful. Number 9. Tsar Nicholas II, 1868 to 1918. Citizenship, Russia. Net worth, $300 to $348 billion. Source of wealth, absolute control over the Russian Empire's state assets. Notable achievement, last emperor of Russia and recognized as a saint by the Russian Orthodox Church. Fun fact, he is often cited as the wealthiest saint in history. Nicholas II had access to the full economic power of Imperial Russia: land, industries, palaces, railways, you name it. The Romanov dynasty lived in jaw-dropping luxury. Think Fabergé eggs, diamond-encrusted everything, and palaces that looked like they were designed by someone who said, "more gold." No, more. But history took a sharp turn. After the Russian Revolution, Nicholas and his family were executed. Decades later, the Russian Orthodox Church canonized him as a saint. From emperor to prisoner to saint. One of the wildest life arcs on this list. Number 8, Andrew Carnegie, 1835 to 1919. Citizenship, USA, born in Scotland. Net worth, $310 to $375 billion. Source of wealth, Carnegie Steel Company. Notable achievement, established over 2,500 public libraries worldwide. Fun fact, he believed the man who dies rich dies disgraced and gave away 90% of his fortune. Carnegie is the ultimate rags to riches story. He came to America as a poor immigrant boy and built one of the largest steel empires the world had ever seen. Railroads, skyscrapers, bridges. His steel helped build modern America. Then he did something shocking. He gave most of it away. Carnegie believed rich people had a moral duty to return wealth to society. By the time he died, he had donated about 90% of his fortune, funding schools, universities, and thousands of libraries. He didn't just build buildings, he built opportunities. Number 7, John D. Rockefeller,
1839 1937.
Citizenship, USA. Net worth, $400 to $631 billion. Source of wealth, Standard Oil, which controlled 90% of U.S. oil refining. Notable achievement, the world's first nominal billionaire. Fun fact, he handed out shiny new dimes to children and adults alike as a way to promote thriftiness. Rockefeller dominated oil the way Wi-Fi dominates your house. At one point, Standard Oil controlled about 90% of U.S. oil refining. That's not a company, that's an economic empire. He was so rich that when adjusted for inflation, he's still one of the wealthiest individuals in modern history. Yet personally, calm, quiet, church-going, and famously known for handing out shiny dimes to kids, telling them to save money. Imagine getting financial advice from a man worth $500 billion, and he starts you off with 10 cents. Number 6. Mansa Musa, 1280 to 1337. Citizenship, Mali Empire. Net worth, $400 to $600 billion. Source of wealth, gold and salt production, which controlled half the world's supply at the time. Notable achievement, transformed Timbuktu into a global center for Islamic scholarship. Fun fact, on his pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold in Cairo
that he crashed the local gold market for 12 years.
Mansa Musa wasn't just rich, he was legendary rich. He ruled the Mali Empire in the 14th century, which controlled a massive portion of the world's gold supply. And gold back then wasn't just jewelry, it was the backbone of global trade. During his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave away so much gold in Cairo that the local economy went into inflation shock for over a decade. Historians basically said, yeah, there's no accurate way to measure how rich this guy really was. That's when you know you've entered myth-level wealth. Number 5. Elon Musk, 1971 to present. Citizenship, South Africa, Canada, United States. Net worth, $852 billion as of February 2026. Source of wealth, Tesla, SpaceX, and X, formerly Twitter. Notable achievement, revolutionizing the electric vehicle industry and private space exploration. Fun fact, he is the first person in modern history to reach a nominal net worth of over $800 billion. And here we have the modern era boss battle. Elon Musk didn't inherit an empire. He built companies that reshaped transportation, energy, and space travel. Electric cars went from niche science project to mainstream status symbol. Rockets that land themselves, that's just another Tuesday at SpaceX. Love him or hate him, Elon Musk redefined what modern wealth looks like. He's proof that today's billionaires don't just own industries, they try to reinvent the future. Number 4. King Solomon, 990
To 931 BC.
Citizenship, Israel. Net worth, $2.2 trillion. Estimates vary wildly. Source of wealth, taxation, trade, and tribute, receiving 25 tons of gold annually. Notable achievement, built the first holy temple in Jerusalem. Fun fact, Solomon reportedly had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Solomon's wealth sounds like it came from a fantasy novel. Ancient texts describe him receiving 25 tons of gold per year, and that was just part of his income. His kingdom sat at the crossroads of major trade routes, making Jerusalem a commercial powerhouse. He's remembered for wisdom, architecture, and diplomacy, but also for a personal life that would absolutely break modern group chats. Wisest king ever? Maybe. Busiest household ever? Definitely. Number 3. Augustus Caesar, 63 BC to 14 AD. Citizenship, Roman Empire. Net worth, $4.6 trillion. Source of wealth, personal ownership of Egypt and 20% of the Roman Empire's economy. Notable achievement, founded the Roman Empire and initiated the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Fun fact, he famously boasted, "I found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble." Augustus didn't just run an empire, he became the empire. After the fall of the Roman Republic, he emerged as the first Roman emperor and brought stability through the Pax Romana, a long stretch of relative peace and prosperity that allowed trade, culture, and infrastructure to flourish across vast territories. Roads expanded, cities grew, and the Roman economy became more interconnected than ever before. He also effectively controlled Egypt, one of the richest regions in the ancient world. Its grain supply was so crucial that it helped feed Rome's massive population and strengthened Augustus's grip on power, because in Rome, controlling food meant controlling stability. When he bragged about turning Rome from brick to marble, he wasn't exaggerating. Massive building projects, temples, forums, and monuments transformed the city's appearance and symbolized a new imperial era. He didn't just inherit a system, he redesigned it, laying the political and economic foundations for an empire that would shape Western civilization for centuries. 2. Akbar the First, 1542 to 1605. Citizenship, India, Mughal Empire. Net worth, $21 trillion. Source of wealth, absolute rule over the Mughal Empire, which held 25% of global GDP at its peak. Notable achievement, consolidated Mughal power through religious tolerance and a highly centralized administrative system. Fun fact, Akbar was illiterate, yet he collected a library of over 24,000 volumes in various languages. Akbar the Great ruled an empire so vast and prosperous that it accounted for a quarter of the world's economy at its peak. Let that sink in, 25% of global GDP under one crown. He strengthened administrative systems, reorganized tax collection, expanded trade, and built a centralized government that made the Mughal Empire both efficient and incredibly wealthy. But Akbar wasn't just focused on power and profit. He promoted religious tolerance, abolished discriminatory taxes on non-Muslims, and encouraged dialogue between Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and other faiths. In a time when many rulers divided people, he tried to unify them. The result? A cultural golden age. Art flourished, architecture thrived, literature expanded. His court became a magnet for talent. And here's the twist, he couldn't read. Yet he surrounded himself with scholars, poets, philosophers, and artists. He collected a massive library of over 24,000 volumes and had them read aloud to him regularly. He absorbed ideas through discussion, debate, and curiosity rather than ink on a page. Proof that leadership isn't always about what you know personally. It's about building a system where brilliance thrives and being wise enough to listen to it.
Number 1. Emperor Shenzong of Song, 1048 to 1085. Citizenship, China, Song Dynasty. Net worth, $30 trillion. Source of wealth, total control over the Song Dynasty's economy, which accounted for 30% of global GDP. Notable achievement? Implemented the new policies to improve the lives of the poor, acting as a precursor to the modern welfare state. Fun fact, his empire was so technologically advanced, gunpowder, paper money, that it was essentially a pre-modern industrial revolution. And at the top of the list, we have a man whose empire produced nearly 1/3 of the world's economic output. Let that sink in. That means during Emperor Shenzong's reign, the Song dynasty wasn't just rich, it was basically the economic engine of the planet at the time. China was bursting with innovation, gunpowder, large-scale printing, and remarkably advanced engineering and industry. Cities were thriving, trade was booming, and the economy was so sophisticated that some historians compare it to a pre-modern industrial surge. But Shenzong wasn't just presiding over wealth. He tried to manage it in a way that strengthened society. Through the new policies, he pushed reforms aimed at helping farmers, stabilizing food supplies, and easing the pressure on the poor. These were bold, state-driven economic ideas that feel surprisingly modern. So the richest person in history wasn't just sitting on mountains of wealth. He was using the power of an ultra-advanced empire to try to reshape how society functioned. That's not just trillionaire money, that's trillionaire-level influence. Final thoughts. From ancient emperors controlling global trade, to industrial titans fueling modern civilization, to tech billionaires launching rockets, wealth has always shaped history. But here's the wildest part.
Money alone didn't define these figures. Their influence, decisions, and legacies changed the world for better, worse, or a complicated mix of both. And somehow, across thousands of years, one truth stays the same. Power fades, empires fall, but stories of extreme wealth, those last forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's ultimate money leaderboard, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next mind-blowing countdown. Because trust me, history has way more unbelievable stories where this came from.